Real Housewives of Potomac star Karen Huger found herself in the headlines once again after body cam footage of her March DUI arrest was released. The footage, obtained by Fox 5 DC, paints a dramatic picture of the reality star's behavior during the incident, which occurred after she crashed her Maserati off the side of the road. The release of the video, which shows her acting disoriented and intoxicated, has since gone viral, sparking widespread commentary. The footage begins with Karen Huger sitting in an interrogation room where a police officer attempts to get her statement about the crash. However, Huger's responses are far from coherent. At one point, she looks at the officer and, seemingly trying to explain herself, says, "So, what's your point, sir?" "I'm sorry, it's not you. I'm drunk, I'm extremely intelligent," as she slumps in her seat. What follows is a perplexing statement. "And I'm Thomas Jefferson's concubine." This bizarre declaration has left many wondering what exactly prompted Huger to bring up the third president of the United States, and it remains unclear why she made such a comparison. She quickly shifts the conversation, asking the officer what he wants, further adding to the strange nature of the encounter. This footage adds another layer to the already publicized incident. On March 9, 2024, Karen Huger was arrested for driving under the influence after crashing her Maserati in the vicinity of Potomac, Maryland. The officer who responded to the crash initially did not know who she was, but the events quickly escalated. The footage of the arrest includes various exchanges between Huger and the officers, with her exhibiting signs of intoxication throughout. During a part of the video filmed before her interrogation, Huger can be heard talking to another officer while being driven in the squad car to the station. "I'm Karen. They call me the Grand Dame," Huger tells the officer, referencing her famous nickname, which Bravo fans are familiar with. The officer, who was unaware of Huger's television fame, seemed confused and asked, "The Grand Dame?" Huger, appearing to be amused by his lack of knowledge, responded with a laugh, saying, "I don't know what the hef carn that's about. Andy coined that. Andy coined that. He called me the Grand Dame." This reference to the show's host, Andy Cohen, is just one of the many self-referential remarks Huger makes throughout the footage. The officer, still not fully understanding the significance of the term Grande Dame, continues assisting Huger. However, their interaction takes an increasingly bizarre turn as Huger shows her frustration and exhaustion. Once they arrive at the police station, the officer helps Huger out of the squad car, unbuckling her seatbelt as she mutters, "You know I hate you, right?" She requests that the officer remove her handcuffs, but the officer replies that he cannot comply with that request. The footage reveals Huger's increasing discomfort and confusion as she stumbles up the steps to the station, clearly feeling the effects of her intoxication. "Oh God, I'm lit," she can be heard saying, continuing to act disoriented. Despite her apparent state, Huger remains verbally assertive, repeatedly identifying herself as Karen Huger throughout the footage. In one particularly surreal moment, after the crash, Huger is seen standing outside the car next to her husband, Raymond A. Huger. He asks her to not do a lot of talking at this point, likely trying to calm the situation. However, Karen once again introduces herself with the words, "I'm Karen Huger," while shaking an officer's hand, seemingly unaware of the consequences of her actions. The video ends with her mumbling, attempting to explain where she was coming from, but her words are indecipherable as she looks down at the ground in apparent embarrassment. The release of the body cam footage has reignited public interest in Karen Huger's DUI arrest. The footage was made public after Huger was convicted of DUI on Wednesday, December 18, 2024. And it shows a stark contrast to the glamorous and poised image she projects on Real Housewives of Potomac. Her antics in the footage, including her incoherent ramblings, random references, and erratic behavior, stand in sharp contrast to the persona she often presents on the reality TV show. Huger, 61, is known for her role as one of the leading figures on the Real Housewives of Potomac, a show that has gained significant attention for its drama-filled episodes and larger-than-life personalities. Huger has been a mainstay of the series since its inception and is often seen as a sophisticated and intelligent woman. Her self-proclaimed title of the Grande Dame speaks to her self-confidence and position within the group of women. Yet, the events of the DUI arrest reveal a different side to her, one that's far less polished and far more vulnerable, caught in an unscripted moment of personal crisis. While the footage has drawn much attention, it also raises questions about the broader conversation surrounding celebrity behavior and the responsibility that public figures have when they engage in reckless behavior. Some critics have argued that celebrities like Karen Huger, who often portray an image of wealth, glamour, and sophistication, must be held accountable for their actions in the real world. The release of the body cam footage, despite its unflattering nature, is also a reminder of the pressure that public figures face as their personal lives are scrutinized by the media and their fans. As of now, Karen Huger faces serious legal repercussions for the DUI incident. Following her conviction, she is at risk of facing up to 2 years in prison. This outcome highlights the severity of driving under the influence and the legal consequences that come with such an offense. DUI convictions in Maryland carry significant penalties, including potential jail time, fines, and mandatory alcohol education classes. While it remains unclear how the case will progress in the coming months, it is evident that Huger's legal troubles are far from over. In the aftermath of the release of the body cam footage, social media has exploded with reactions from fans, some expressing sympathy for Huger and others criticizing her behavior. Many have weighed in on her strange and at times comical remarks during the encounter, with some finding her actions entertaining, while others see it as a sobering reminder of the dangers of drinking and driving. It's likely that the drama surrounding the incident will continue to play out both on social media and within the Real Housewives of Potomac fan community. Despite her legal troubles, Huger's status as a reality TV star has not been significantly diminished. As a longtime member of the Real Housewives franchise, Huger has amassed a dedicated fan base who continue to support her through both her triumphs and controversies. It remains to be seen how this incident will affect her relationship with Bravo and whether it will be addressed on future seasons of the show. Several days ago, Huger revealed her marriage even on the radio Grammet she is so fond of. If past seasons are any indication, it is likely that the DUI arrest will be a topic of conversation among the cast members, adding another layer of drama to an already eventful series. For now, Karen Huger is facing the legal consequences of her actions while her fans and critics alike continue to dissect every detail of the footage. The drama surrounding her DUI arrest is far from over, and it seems that Huger's role as a real housewife will continue to involve moments of both glitz and scandal. Whether this particular scandal will have a lasting impact on her career remains to be seen, but for now, the world is watching. Karen Huger, known for her role as a star of the Real Housewives of Potomac, has recently been found guilty on nearly all charges following a DUI incident that occurred in Maryland earlier this year. The incident, which took place on March 19th, has led to several legal proceedings and multiple charges, resulting in a guilty verdict for Huger, with sentencing scheduled for January 29. Attorneys' response to the verdict and future plans for appeal. Karen Huger's attorney, A. Scott Bolden, who is a partner at the prestigious Reed Smith law firm, spoke out about the verdict in an exclusive statement to People. Bolden expressed his disappointment with the jury's decision, but emphasized that they respected the outcome of the trial. Despite the guilty verdict, Bolden made it clear that they intended to continue pursuing justice on Huger's behalf and would be moving forward with an appeal. He further assured the public that Huger's legal team would fully pursue justice, and they remain optimistic about their ability to overturn the decision in a higher court. Bolden also took the opportunity to thank those who have supported Huger and her family during this challenging time, asking for continued prayers and understanding as they navigate the appeal process. Bolden also adds, quote, "I will not stop until the justice system is operational and Bolden took the needed action." End quote. "We continue to reserve Mrs. Huger's right to an appeal and intend to fully pursue justice on her behalf," Bolden stated. "We appreciate your support and prayers for Mrs. Huger and her family at this time." The charges that Huger faced following the March 19 incident were serious, including DUI, driving under the influence, and DWI, driving while impaired, as well as several other charges stemming from negligent and reckless driving. These charges included allegations of endangering people and property, driving with a suspended registration, and failing to control her vehicle at a reasonable speed to avoid a collision. The charges were compounded by a report from law enforcement that Huger had been driving aggressively and at a high rate of speed before the crash occurred. Details of the March incident. What happened that night? On March 19, 2024, Karen Huger was involved in a single-vehicle collision in the Potomac area of Maryland. According to a spokesperson for the Montgomery County Police Department, Huger's vehicle crossed a median and struck several street signs, causing damage. Miraculously, Huger was not injured in the crash, though the event was distressing and authorities were quick to respond. At the scene, law enforcement reportedly described Huger's driving as erratic and aggressive. The reality star was cited for several violations, including driving under the influence of alcohol and operating a vehicle in a reckless and imprudent manner that endangered both her life and the lives of others. These citations included charges of speeding, failure to control the vehicle's speed, and driving with a suspended registration. Huger was also cited for failing to notify the relevant authorities of a change of address within the required 30-day period. Despite the severity of the charges, Huger did not sustain injuries in the crash, and there were no reports of other vehicles being involved. At the time of the incident, authorities were clear that Huger was not arrested, though she did receive several citations, and the investigation into the accident continued to unfold in the following weeks. As the case progressed, it became clear that the charges would be more serious than initially anticipated. After reviewing evidence, including witness statements and police reports, prosecutors charged Huger with numerous violations related to reckless driving. The case gained significant media attention due to Huger's high profile as a reality television star, making the court proceedings a topic of public interest for fans of the Real Housewives of Potomac and followers of her personal life. The courtroom drama, witnesses, and body cam footage. Huger's trial, which began in December 2024, saw several key moments unfold in court that contributed to the guilty verdict. One of the most significant aspects of the trial was the testimony of witnesses who had been at the scene of the accident. Several individuals who had been present when Huger was found after the crash described a troubling scene. A volunteer EMT who had been called to the scene of the collision testified that Huger did not wish to receive medical treatment and appeared to be unsteady on her feet. The EMT described how Huger swayed while attempting to enter the ambulance and gave erratic responses when asked questions about her condition. The EMT's account also included disturbing details about Huger's behavior at the scene. According to the volunteer responder, Huger allegedly used foul language when speaking to the EMT, saying things like "F off" and "Go F yourselves." However, the EMT also described a sudden shift in Huger's behavior when she later complimented a female firefighter, telling her, "You're so beautiful." The stark contrast in Huger's actions added to the complexity of the case, and the jury was left to determine whether these behaviors were indicative of impairment due to alcohol or simply a reflection of her emotional state. In addition to witness testimony, the jury was shown body cam footage from the officers who arrived at the scene shortly after the crash. In one particularly striking clip, an officer can be heard telling Huger that she appeared to be hammered. Huger immediately responded, dismissing the officer's comment as bulls. This exchange, captured on the body cam footage, was a crucial piece of evidence during the trial, as it highlighted the tension between the officer's assessment of her state and Huger's own denial of being under the influence. While the body cam footage and witness testimony played a significant role in the trial, Huger maintained that she was not intoxicated at the time of the crash. Throughout the trial, her defense team argued that her behavior could have been influenced by emotional distress and grief rather than alcohol consumption. Huger herself testified that she had been grieving the recent loss of her mother and father, both of whom passed away within 7 months of each other in 2017. She described the emotional toll the losses had taken on her, especially with Mother's Day approaching, which only heightened her feelings of sadness and grief. Karen Huger breaks silence, grief and emotional turmoil. Following the incident, Karen Huger broke her silence in an exclusive statement to TMZ, explaining the emotional distress she was experiencing at the time of the crash. Huger shared that the night of the accident had been particularly difficult for her. She revealed that she had met up with a close friend for dinner, where they discussed very emotionally sensitive topics. According to Huger, the conversation caused her to cry, and she was in an emotionally vulnerable state when she got into her car to drive home. As she was heading back, Huger explained that she saw another car heading toward her, which prompted her to swerve to avoid a potential head-on collision. In the process, her vehicle struck the median and a tree. She described herself as hurt and bruised following the crash, but expressed gratitude that she was alive. Huger also stated that she received several citations, one of which she believed was unrelated to the incident, but acknowledged it was understandable. She also expressed disbelief that the car she had swerved to avoid simply drove away without stopping. In a poignant moment, Huger credited her mother, whom she referred to as her guardian angel, for helping her survive the ordeal. She also emphasized the importance of understanding your emotional state before getting behind the wheel, urging her fans to take care of themselves during moments of intense emotional pain to avoid putting themselves and others at risk on the road. Impact on the Real Housewives of Potomac and public reception. Huger's legal troubles and the ensuing courtroom drama have become a major storyline in the current season of the Real Housewives of Potomac. The reality series, which airs on Bravo, has followed Huger through the ups and downs of her life, and the DUI incident is no exception. Fans of the show have watched the events unfold, with many expressing sympathy for Huger while also questioning her behavior during the incident. The series has gained even more attention this season due to the drama surrounding the legal charges, with viewers eager to see how Huger handles the situation both in court and on screen. The public's reaction to the incident has been mixed. While some have shown empathy for Huger, especially given her emotional struggles and the grief she has experienced, others have been critical of her actions. Some fans have taken to social media to express their concern for Huger's well-being, while others have questioned her decision to drive under the influence, especially given the severity of the charges against her. The reality star's actions in the aftermath of the crash, including her use of foul language and her denial of impairment, have sparked debates online about the responsibility of public figures when it comes to setting an example for their followers. As the case continues to unfold, Karen Huger's future remains uncertain, with the sentencing scheduled for January 29, 2025. Huger's legal team is expected to continue their fight for an appeal, and her fans are left wondering how this chapter in her life will impact her future on the Real Housewives of Potomac and her public image as a whole. Conclusion: a critical moment in Karen Huger's life. The guilty verdict against Karen Huger is a critical moment in her life, both personally and professionally. As she prepares for sentencing and pursues an appeal, her actions and the aftermath of the DUI incident will likely continue to be a focal point of public discussion. Huger's ability to handle this challenging time will not only shape her legal future, but also affect her standing in the public eye and her role on the Real Housewives of Potomac. For now, fans and onlookers will watch as Huger navigates this difficult period, hoping for a resolution that brings justice while allowing her to move forward with her life. Karen Huger, a prominent figure on the Real Housewives of Potomac, has found herself at the center of a deeply public and emotional legal battle following a DUI incident that took place in March 2024. The case, which has drawn significant media attention, not only touches on serious legal consequences, but also delves into Karen Huger's personal struggles, including grief, emotional distress, and her efforts to navigate this challenging period while maintaining her public image. As the case progresses, new details continue to emerge, offering a fuller picture of the incident, the courtroom drama, and the personal toll it has taken on the reality star. Emotional response. Huger reflects on grief and the accident. One of the most poignant aspects of this situation is Karen Huger's emotional response to the incident, particularly regarding her grief and how it influenced her actions. During the trial, Huger publicly spoke about the tremendous emotional turmoil she had been experiencing at the time of the accident. She explained that her decision to get behind the wheel that night was influenced by a deeply emotional state, rooted in the grief of losing both of her parents within a short period. The loss of her mother and father had a profound impact on Huger, and she revealed that it played a significant role in her emotional distress on the night of the crash. Karen openly acknowledged how the grief overwhelmed her and led her to a vulnerable state of mind, which ultimately resulted in her making the decision to drive while emotionally compromised. Huger disclosed that on the night of the accident, she had met with a close friend to discuss sensitive matters related to her personal loss. The conversation caused her to become emotional, and Huger revealed that she was crying when she got into her car to drive home. She mentioned how her emotional vulnerability was a key factor in her failure to fully assess her condition before getting behind the wheel. Huger expressed that, despite being in a highly emotional state, she didn't feel that her actions were intentional or malicious, but rather a result of being deeply affected by her grief. While it is clear that Karen Huger's grief played a significant role in her state of mind, her defense team used this emotional backdrop to argue that the crash was an unfortunate consequence of her emotional struggles, rather than a result of impaired driving. However, witnesses and body cam footage provided a very different perspective on the events that transpired that night. Courtroom drama. Witnesses and body cam footage presented. The legal proceedings surrounding Karen Huger's DUI charges have unfolded in dramatic fashion, with courtroom testimony, body cam footage, and witness statements playing a key role in the trial. Huger's defense team has worked to emphasize her emotional state as the primary factor in the incident, but multiple witnesses, including law enforcement officers and bystanders, have provided conflicting accounts of the events. The prosecution has presented compelling evidence that casts doubt on Huger's claim that her behavior was solely a result of grief. One of the most crucial pieces of evidence introduced in the trial came from a witness who testified about the smell of alcohol on Huger's breath after the crash. The witness, a man who was nearby when the accident occurred, told the court that when Huger exited her vehicle, he immediately noticed a strong odor of alcohol. This testimony was pivotal in establishing a potential link between alcohol consumption and the crash. The witness also stated that Huger appeared disoriented and unsteady on her feet, which further raised concerns about her condition at the time of the incident. In addition to witness testimony, the trial featured body cam footage from the officers who arrived at the scene of the crash. The footage showed a tense interaction between the police officers and Karen Huger. In one particularly revealing moment, the officers can be heard questioning Huger about her condition and whether she had been drinking. Despite the officer's apparent suspicion, Huger firmly denied being intoxicated, responding angrily to the questions. "That's bulls," she reportedly said, dismissing the officer's claims about her state. This exchange was captured on the body cam footage and played a significant role in shaping the jury's view of Huger's behavior after the crash. The footage and witness testimony raised questions about Huger's credibility, particularly regarding her denial of being intoxicated. While she continued to insist that she was not under the influence of alcohol, the physical evidence, including her erratic behavior and the smell of alcohol, painted a different picture. Huger's defiant response to the police officers also added to the tension in the courtroom, as it seemed to suggest a lack of cooperation and a refusal to take responsibility for her actions. Throughout the trial, Huger's defense team worked tirelessly to counter the prosecution's claims. They argued that the evidence presented by the witnesses was circumstantial, and that Huger's emotional state, not alcohol, was the primary factor in the accident. They also pointed to the lack of definitive proof of intoxication, such as blood alcohol content (BAC) tests, as a reason to question the prosecution's case. However, the prosecution maintained that Huger's behavior on the night of the accident was indicative of impairment due to alcohol, and they painted a picture of a person who, despite her emotional struggles, was still responsible for her actions behind the wheel. The combination of witness testimony, body cam footage, and the accident itself created a compelling case against Huger, leading to the jury's guilty verdict on multiple charges, including DUI and reckless driving. The impact of the incident on Huger's public image. Karen Huger's legal troubles have had a significant impact on her public image. As a reality television star, Huger is used to being in the spotlight, but this case has placed her under intense scrutiny. Fans of the Real Housewives of Potomac have been following the legal proceedings closely, and many have expressed mixed reactions to the situation. Some fans have shown sympathy for Huger, particularly after she spoke about her grief and the emotional toll it had taken on her. These fans have rallied behind Huger, offering words of support and encouragement as she faces the legal consequences of her actions. On the other hand, there has been a significant portion of the public that has criticized Huger's actions. Some have questioned her decision to drive under the influence of alcohol, especially given her public status and the responsibility she has to set a positive example for her fans. Others have expressed disappointment in her defiant response to the police officers during the incident, seeing it as an indication of arrogance or a lack of accountability. The ongoing trial and the fallout from the crash have certainly had an effect on Huger's reputation, and it remains to be seen how she will handle the aftermath. For Huger, the situation is not just a legal challenge, but also a personal one. Her grief and emotional distress have been on display for the public to see, and she has had to navigate the difficult balance between being open about her struggles and protecting her image as a reality star. It is clear that the DUI incident has deeply affected her, and she has made it a point to express how the loss of her parents has shaped her actions. In one emotional moment, Huger referred to her mother as her guardian angel, thanking her for watching over her during the crash. This heartfelt sentiment was one of the most emotional moments of the trial, as Huger acknowledged the role her mother had played in helping her survive the accident. Sentencing and future plans. With the guilty verdict now in place, Karen Huger's sentencing is scheduled for January 29, 2025. The sentencing will mark the next crucial step in this legal battle and will determine the extent of the penalties Huger will face. While the exact terms of the sentencing are still to be decided, the charges against Huger could lead to significant consequences, including fines, probation, and potentially even jail time. Huger's legal team has indicated that they will continue to pursue an appeal in an attempt to overturn the conviction, but the outcome of the appeal is uncertain. As the sentencing date approaches, Karen Huger's future remains uncertain. Her career, her personal life, and her role on the Real Housewives of Potomac could all be impacted by the outcome of this case. It is clear that Huger's actions that night will have lasting consequences both legally and personally, and it is impossible to predict how the public will continue to respond as the case progresses. In the meantime, fans and critics alike will continue to follow the story as it unfolds. Huger's trial has highlighted the complex intersection of grief, personal responsibility, and public image, and it serves as a reminder of the challenges that public figures face when their private lives are thrust into the spotlight. Huger's ability to navigate this difficult period will determine not only the course of her legal proceedings, but also the future of her career and her public persona. As Karen Huger looks towards sentencing and beyond, it remains to be seen how this trial will shape her life moving forward. Will she be able to recover from this legal and emotional ordeal? Or will the consequences of her actions continue to affect her both personally and professionally? Only time will tell as Huger faces the next chapter in this ongoing legal drama. Karen Huger, a beloved star of the Real Housewives of Potomac, is now facing the legal consequences of a DUI incident that occurred earlier this year. Following months of legal proceedings, the verdict has been handed down, and Huger has been found guilty on multiple counts. The incident in question took place back in March, when Huger was involved in a single-vehicle collision that led to charges of DUI and reckless driving. At the time of the crash, law enforcement reported that Huger had crossed a median and struck several street signs. Despite the severity of the collision, she was fortunate to not have suffered any injuries. However, the crash set off a series of events that would lead to her facing multiple charges, including DUI, DWI, and reckless driving. The details surrounding the incident have sparked both sympathy and controversy, with many questioning the circumstances that led to Huger's impaired driving. The incident, a fateful night in March. The night of the accident began like many others for Karen Huger. However, it quickly turned into a dramatic event that would have lasting consequences. On March 19, 2024, Huger was involved in a single-car accident in Potomac, Maryland. The crash occurred after she reportedly swerved across a median, striking street signs and causing significant damage to her vehicle. Fortunately, Huger was unharmed, but the damage to her car and the subsequent investigation raised red flags for authorities. Law enforcement officers arrived at the scene to find a distraught Huger who, according to the police reports, appeared disoriented. During the investigation, officers suspected that alcohol might have played a role in the crash. However, no immediate blood alcohol content (BAC) test was conducted at the scene, leading some to question the extent of Huger's impairment. In the weeks following the incident, the news of Huger's involvement in the crash began circulating in the media, drawing attention not just for the accident itself, but also for her high-profile status as a reality television star. As fans of the Real Housewives of Potomac followed the story, many expressed concern for Huger's well-being, while others questioned how a celebrity figure like her could find herself in such a situation. The questions surrounding her actions that night would soon unfold in the courtroom. The courtroom drama, testimonies, and body cam footage. As the legal proceedings began, the courtroom drama quickly heated up, with each side presenting its case in a series of hearings that brought witnesses and video evidence into the spotlight. The prosecution presented several key pieces of evidence, including testimony from witnesses who were at the scene of the accident. One witness claimed that they smelled alcohol on Huger's breath shortly after the crash, suggesting that alcohol may have been a factor in the collision. In addition to witness testimony, body cam footage from the responding police officers was also introduced as evidence. The footage showed officers questioning Huger about her condition and whether she had been drinking before the crash. While Huger was visibly upset, she denied being intoxicated, even going so far as to say, "That's bulls," when the officers implied that she had been under the influence of alcohol. Her defiant response was captured on the officers' body cameras, and it quickly became a focal point in the case. While Huger's defense team sought to portray her emotional state as a result of grief over the recent loss of both of her parents, the prosecution maintained that her behavior on the night of the crash indicated impairment. The court was presented with the challenge of determining whether Huger's actions were a result of emotional distress or whether alcohol played a significant role in the incident. Despite her emotional testimony about the grief she was experiencing at the time, the jury ultimately sided with the prosecution, finding Huger guilty on multiple charges, including DUI and reckless driving. The guilty verdict marked a pivotal moment in the case, as Huger now faces the legal consequences of her actions. Emotional impact. Huger's personal struggles. Throughout the trial, Karen Huger's personal struggles were a central theme, with the reality star frequently referencing her emotional state at the time of the accident. Huger opened up to the court about the devastating losses she had recently experienced, including the deaths of both of her parents. She explained that she had been overwhelmed with grief, which contributed to her emotional state and ultimately her decision to drive that night. Huger has long been open about the significant role her parents played in her life, and their passing left her grappling with a profound sense of loss. In court, she tearfully explained that she had been seeking closure after their deaths and had been emotionally distraught when she made the decision to get into her car. Huger revealed that she swerved to avoid a head-on collision after becoming emotionally overwhelmed, but this only resulted in her crashing into the street signs. Many people in the courtroom, including Huger's supporters, expressed sympathy for the reality star's grief. Her emotional testimony seemed to resonate with some of the jurors, who acknowledged that her emotional distress likely played a role in her actions. However, the jury ultimately had to weigh this against the seriousness of the charges and the potential danger posed by her impaired driving. The defense, grief versus accountability. Karen Huger's defense team worked diligently to argue that her grief was the driving force behind the accident, and they sought to demonstrate that her actions were not a result of intentional misconduct. They emphasized that Huger's emotional state had rendered her temporarily unable to make sound decisions, which contributed to the crash. The defense team pointed to Huger's previous clean driving record and lack of prior legal issues as evidence that she was not a habitual offender, but rather someone who made a one-time mistake due to emotional distress. However, the prosecution countered these claims by pointing to the witness testimony and body cam footage, which suggested that Huger's actions went beyond simple emotional distress. The prosecution argued that Huger's refusal to cooperate with the officers and her denial of being intoxicated indicated a lack of accountability and a disregard for the potential consequences of her actions. Despite the emotional testimony from Huger and her defense team, the jury ultimately sided with the prosecution, delivering a guilty verdict on multiple charges. The court found that, while Huger's grief may have played a role in the incident, her decision to drive while impaired was a clear violation of the law. Sentencing. What's next for Huger? With the guilty verdict now in place, Karen Huger's sentencing is set for January 29, 2025. The sentencing will mark the next critical phase of the legal proceedings, as Huger faces the consequences of her actions. While the exact penalties are yet to be determined, Huger could face significant fines, probation, or even jail time, depending on the court's decision. Huger's legal team has already expressed their intention to appeal the verdict, citing concerns over the evidence presented and the jury's decision. They are hoping that an appeal could overturn the conviction or reduce the charges, but the outcome of any potential appeal remains uncertain. In the meantime, Huger continues to face the public fallout from the case. As a reality television star, she is no stranger to being in the public eye, but the DUI charges have raised questions about her behavior and the role of alcohol in the incident. Her supporters continue to express sympathy for her grief, while her critics argue that her actions were reckless and irresponsible. The future of Karen Huger. Looking ahead, Karen Huger's future remains uncertain. The consequences of this legal battle will likely have a lasting impact on her career, public image, and personal life. Huger's role on the Real Housewives of Potomac could be affected by the outcome of the case, with some wondering whether the legal troubles will overshadow her participation on the show. However, if the reality star can successfully navigate this period of adversity, she may emerge stronger and more resilient than before. As Huger faces sentencing, she will undoubtedly continue to grapple with the fallout from the crash and its legal repercussions. The next few months will be crucial for her as she seeks to rebuild her life and move forward from this difficult chapter. Whether or not Huger can fully recover from the emotional and legal toll this incident has taken on her remains to be seen, but it is clear that she is not giving up without a fight.